button and subscribe.
What a day in Omaha, and a game still to be played tonight with the game between LSU and UCLA. But what an afternoon. Mitch Light, theathletic.com, joins us on 365 Sports. My goodness, Arkansas with pizzazz, a no-hitter. They win the game. Murray State, very competitive. But Paul made this comment, first time, Mitch, since 1960 that someone's thrown a no-hitter, and that's what Arkansas and Wood did.
Yeah, and obviously, guys, just an epic performance and a very poor performance on my part. I was in Omaha from Wednesday to Sunday night. I come home, and, in what should have been a sleepy elimination game with nothing happening, we get the greatest, one of the most eventful College World Series games in a long time. But, yeah, Gage Wood's an interesting guy. He was going to be a weekend starter for Arkansas. He started as a weekend starter. If you watch the broadcast, he hurt his shoulder, missed maybe 6 weeks, 2 months. Working back into the rotation, and you can see why he is considered a draft, such a potential first-round draft pick. Just phenomenal performance. The fastball was incredible, literally unhittable, I guess you would say. Jared Bednar, not Jared Bednar, drawing a blank on his first name, from Mississippi State in 2021, had two great performances, including a one-hitter in the Game 3, the championship game against Vanderbilt. But as far as just no hard contact, just making hitters look foolish, I don't think I've seen on such a big stage a performance like this ever.
What did you think about the review? Did they get it right?
Hated it.
Yeah.
I watch, obviously you guys know, I watch a lot of college baseball, so I'm very familiar with the rule and the interpretation and how it's called. If a lot of people just kind of zooming in and who just watch Major League Baseball, the rule is you don't have to get out of the way, but you can't lean into it. And if anything, in my interpretation, he almost tucked his shoulder in a little bit. He did pivot and turn his back, which Chris Burke on the broadcast said you're allowed to do. But in my view, no way did he stick his elbow out to get hit by the pitch. He moved it a little bit, but he almost tucked it in. So I hated that. And if I'm Murray State, I'm mad. At that point, it's 3-0. If you get the leadoff runner on the ninth, Wood's pitch count at that point was what, 110? At some point, you're going to get, if you keep battling, you might get his pitch count up to 120, 125, and they take him out. The game wasn't over. It wasn't like a 7-0 game there. So I hated that interpretation of the call, and you rarely see it overturned either way. It gets reviewed a lot, but you rarely see it overturned. So that added to it, in my opinion.
Mitch, tonight the next game, UCLA and LSU. Your thoughts on that matchup?
Yeah, really good. Two great programs. LSU, the better team, not going out on a limb there. They've got, Anthony Ianson, who's been a very, very good pitcher, transferred in from UC San Diego, has been great in the latter half of the season. This is a good UCLA team, but it's not a vintage, amazing pitching UCLA team of the last, that we saw some in the 2010s. Even, I was at the game the other night, and John Savage, their coach after the game, just basically said, we don't have a staff full of guys with great stuff. You hear the term pitchability now. They got smart guys who know how to win games, but you look at their stats, they're not great from a pitching standpoint. This LSU team isn't a great offensive team. It's a good offensive team. I just think Anthony Ianson on the mound for LSU is going to do enough to shut down UCLA, and I think LSU would scratch out enough runs to win the game. But, it has the potential to be a great uniform game. I'm a big in college baseball uniforms. I was in awe of UCLA's uniforms when I was out there, and LSU obviously has traditional uniforms as well.
Who has the deepest, and now that some of these teams are gone, but who does have the deepest pitching staff among those still remaining?
Arkansas. And,
okay.
Not that they necessarily had to have it, but the fact that they get a complete game out of Gage Wood, and they're they're the one team that if you said could afford to come out of the losers bracket, it would be them. Now they got to get the sticks going. They did not hit the ball well. Obviously Kate Anderson was brilliant for LSU the other night, but not taking anything away from Murray State. What a great story. But the fact that they had trouble today with Murray State's number 2 starter, and what was the score? 3-0 in that game. So I think that's the concern. They will pitch well enough to win. It's just whether or not they can hit well enough.
Coastal Carolina, watching them the other day, Mitch, I've watched the other thing. We've talked about them a lot. They're very confident. They put the ball in play so well. That catcher they have is brilliant.
Yes.
Sets up the strike zone like a maniac, and then he's a really just a pure like Pudge Rodriguez, like, hitter and just puts it in play all the time. I really like watching them, and they've got a chip on their shoulder. This is to me, outside of, obviously Arkansas and LSU are scary, but that to me is a scary team because they feel like they're playing with house money every second of this tournament.
Yeah, they have the perfect sort of balance as the attitude of a number 4 seed and the talent of a number 1 seed, which is dangerous. And they are, I don't care what league you play in or where you come from, when you win whatever 20-something games, or maybe it's more than that, they haven't lost since April, is amazing. And their pitching staff is very, very deep. We saw it last night. What a performance there. Obviously upstaged today, but they can hit the ball. And I think they're kind of a team built for Omaha. I'm trying to blank who they beat last night. I've seen way too many games. Oregon State. Yeah, sorry guys. I've seen way too many teams. Oregon State hit some balls hard to the track, and they even joked about it after the game. They asked the pitcher what he thought about playing in Charles Schwab Field. He's like, I love it. You just hit the ball deep, and our guys go get it. The ball's obviously not carrying. I think there's been 4 home runs there. So when you're built around pitching, like Arkansas is, like Coastal Carolina is, and you get to Omaha, the park really sets up in your favor. And they're in a great position. You win those first 2 games in Omaha, you are in a great position. You sit back, you watch those other teams battle it out in the losers bracket. So they're in a great spot.
As for who they would face out of Oregon State and Louisville coming up tomorrow afternoon, is there a better matchup? Or what intrigues you as well about that game? I think probably from a talent standpoint, I give Oregon State maybe the talent edge, a little bit more top end talent. Louisville played well in the postseason. Obviously, they've pitched well. They've had some freshman pitchers come up. My pick would be Oregon State. I think Coastal's pitching is going to be too deep for either one of those teams. So either whether it's Oregon State or Louisville, I would expect Coastal to emerge there because they've got to lose twice now. I think we'll see them in the championship series.
So with Murray State's story and their stadium, which we've all heard and seen the story, you've also written about it too, to where they were with that incredible facility in Omaha, man, they did well. They really, it's not like they got blown out 12-2 or whatever. It's not that they went to represent themselves, Mitch. They belonged. They're really good too.
Yeah, and a couple things on that. Obviously I was at the UCLA game on Saturday, and I thought Murray State was sort of a tough luck loser. They hit the ball hard. They had been on base all game. UCLA made some great defensive plays, so credit UCLA. But I thought if you're judging like who hit the ball harder, they both had 9 hits. I thought Murray State consistently made better contact. Yeah, so you're right. They deserve to be there. And what a great story. I mean, I had just being around those guys, the access for the media at the College World Series is unbelievable. Like media day, you're down in the dugout. You can grab any player you want. I was talking to one player, and then 3 feet away from me, there was a guy doing a local interview, and some player, I don't know his name. He just looked around the field. He goes, I cannot believe this is my life. I cannot believe I'm in Omaha. And, I didn't see the press conference today yet. I'll go back and look at their press conference, but I was at the one the other night, and just, they wanted to win, but they really appreciated the stage they were on. They were literally just happy to be there. But you're right, a very good team. They deserve to be there. Like I said, they only gave up 3 runs to Arkansas today. You give up 3 runs in an elimination game. I'd love to look that up. The team that gives up 3 runs usually has a pretty good winning percentage in an elimination game.
I felt it yesterday in the Louisville game. They really charged up in that last inning, but to knock out a pitcher who's been one of the best, and then you have the death by 1,000 paper cuts. You mentioned Louisville a second ago. How much momentum do you think that does build for Louisville to win it without knocking the ball out of the yard? Just small ball on it and rely on mistakes.
Yeah, this group of Louisville Cardinals isn't part of any previous ones, but as good of a job as Dan McDonald, I'm drawing a blank. What you guys know what I'm talking about, has done there. His track record in Omaha isn't great. And not, again, he's done an amazing job with the program. But if they would have gone 0-2 again, not saying there's no hot seat, but it just would have put a lot of pressure on the program again. So for them to come back the way they did, and I think they have a ton of momentum. And there's one thing that they steal a ton of bases. Like you said, they put pressure on the defense. And one thing that's kind of charming about college baseball in a weird way
is, while these are the highest level teams we're seeing, they will make mistakes on defense. And that's kind of Louisville's MO. Put the ball in play, steal the bases, let the other team make a mistake. And we saw that. Arizona imploded in the 8th inning there. Our Louisville looked dead. So that Louisville can, Oregon State's a very well-schooled team and all that, but they had their troubles against Coastal Carolina in the 1st inning last night. So I think that's going to be Louisville's plan of attack again. You got to get on base first, but if you can get on base, you put pressure on the defense on that big stage. We've seen some, I'm kind of rambling here, but we've seen some of the best defensive players in the country. Ava Arquette from Oregon State's made a couple errors. Some of the best players in the country have made errors on this big stage in Omaha.
Mitch, we sometimes have, it depends, recency bias. We sometimes want to make something out of 1 year, a college football playoff or the College World Series. But this year was so unique. With last year, 2 conferences represented everybody, the ACC and the SEC. And this year with Murray State, Coastal Carolina, of course, yes, they've won a national title among everybody else. Did we learn anything new, or is this just one of those years where it was just so deep? What would you take out of all that?
The boring answer somewhere in the middle. I mean, you don't want to overreact to last year when it's 4 ACC, 4 SEC. You don't want to overreact to this year and say, oh, the sport's solved. Look at this parity. We're never going to have a situation where there's 5 SEC teams again. It's such a high variance sport. Things happen in baseball in the postseason. So I don't think we can really draw too much from this, except that it could happen again because it's baseball. But I think it's great. Talking to national media, people in Omaha, everyone thought it was so refreshing to have the geographical diversity, the conference diversity we had this year. The restaurants there. Now the crowds there were great crowds there. The restaurants there would probably prefer to have 5 SEC teams or a bunch of teams in 500 miles away to get more fans there. But I think it was great for the sport this year. But to answer your question, I don't think it really proves anything one way or the other.
Mitch Light, The Athletic, with us on 365 Sports. So you went to Omaha. You cover baseball? Was that your first trip, or you've been there 8 or 10 times?
No, it was my first trip as a media member. My covering baseball for The Athletic is relatively new. I've been a college football editor at The Athletic for 5-6 years. I started dipping my toes in the base. Just I'm a big baseball fan, so I just started kind of doing it on my own. And I said, hey, ask my bosses, can I write college baseball? They're like, sure, go for it. So I've actually been to Omaha 4 previous times, but as a fan, sat in the stands. So it was really, it's a great, very well-run event. Like I mentioned before, the access to the media is great. And if you guys have not been to Omaha, I cannot, you probably hear this from everyone, cannot recommend it enough, how the town embraces everyone. You got 8 fan bases there. I would just go to a breakfast place and everyone there's wearing College World Series stuff. I really went to a breakfast place 2 days ago. I saw fans from all 8 teams in there. And that's just kind of what you see when you go out in Omaha this week.
We went to a Nebraska football game back in the fall, and we came back, of course, flew into Omaha, drove to Lincoln, not a very long trip. And we were there and went by the stadium and had breakfast and that, not like 3 blocks away. It is, they just, how come they're always in Omaha? How come they're always in? They embrace that event like no other.
It's perfect there. And it's not the easiest place to get to for a lot of people. There's not direct flights everywhere, and it's obviously it's a long trip from both coasts, but it's just, and I don't think they ever will move it, but it's just, don't mess with success. Now there's a lot of locals there that really bemoan the move from Rosenblatt Stadium to TD Ameritrade. It's now Charles Schwab Field. They think it's too corporate now. Downtown, it used to have that kind of home, that feel like the stadium was literally in a neighborhood. Now I never went to Rosenblatt. My first time was in 2011, the first year of the new stadium. I can't imagine it being much better. The locals will tell you it was great there, but it's great. Like you said, the stadium's immaculate. It's right on the river there, and they do it right, and I don't think it'll ever move.
What are most of the college baseball coaches that you talk to's feelings about new roster limits, which they've wanted for 30 years? Desperately, but also the way that schools may react to it, that now that they could have 34 if they wanted to, but depending on how popular baseball is, they may not exactly get their way.
Yeah, I do a preseason coaches forum every year, and you can go back and look at, if you Google me in The Athletic, you can find the ones I did before the season. I asked the question, nothing was finalized with the House settlement at the time. I asked about the roster limits. At that time, it looked like they were going from 40 to 34, and I asked, I think it was 8 or 9 coaches, and they were kind of split on the number. Most think the number's a little too small, with injuries. And I know your question's more about the finances, but first they think 34 is kind of a little too small. And then now they just want to know the rules. Talking to some people there, they understand some schools in the SEC are going to be fully funded at 34. Some schools might be in the low 20s. Some schools are going to stay at 11.7. I think it's a bigger issue with those Big Ten schools. A lot of Big Ten schools have made a nice commitment to baseball in recent years. They've hired some good coaches, but they got to divvy up the money. And at a lot of those schools, baseball isn't the third most important sport. Like pretty much every SEC and ACC school, you got football, basketball, and then baseball. Some schools, maybe baseball is higher. But in the Big Ten, you got some schools where wrestling is more important. You got some schools where hockey is more important. So I think those coaches know they're going to be at a serious disadvantage when it comes to compared to SEC schools, ACC schools, some Big 12 schools. So I think they're all split. They all want to know the rules. No one really knows what to expect.
Does the NIL or now, the revenue sharing affect the decision by high school players to enter the Major League Baseball amateur draft, which of course is this month, and or go to college and make some more? Does that affect the trend we've had over the many years?
Yeah, it's the high-end guys. No one's turning down if you're a top 20 pick. The money's just too great. Where we've seen it in recent years is maybe the late first round, second, third round guys that traditionally would just go because the money's too great. Now they're getting some NIL, they'll get some revenue share. So that's why the talent is increasing in college baseball. It's a good thing. Now we'll find out about the NIL above and beyond rev share with this whole NIL Go thing, if that affects everything. But big picture, yes, the fact that these players are able to make money has no doubt impacted their decisions to go to college. And a lot of what's happening too is, the draft, everyone just says the 3 years, but a lot of these guys are not a lot. Some of them are draft eligible sophomores if you're a certain age. So like Kentucky got a guy who was drafted in the first round by the Tampa Bay Rays, and he turned down a lot of money to go to Kentucky, Taylor Bell, second baseman, and because he's going to be a draft eligible sophomore. So if you only have to stay in college for 2 years, it kind of helps your decision sometimes to bypass that money.
Glad you got a chance to go. Too bad you missed the no-hitter. But
thanks. Yeah. It reminded me when I was a kid growing up, going to Yankee games. Dave Righetti threw a no-hitter, I think on July 4th one year, and we had tickets the next day. So that's the story of my life.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. You've done a great job with us to give us a lot of the knowledge of the College World Series, the playoffs, et cetera, baseball tournament. Thank you, Mitch. Appreciate it.
Enjoy talking to you guys. Take care.
Yeah, you too. Mitch Light, theathletic.com. And tonight, there is still that game. LSU, the Tigers, go Tigers.